Hello and welcome to learn more about manager and employee self-service with HR Actions. I'm Joe Rotella, your co-host for this afternoon's seminar. I'm joined by Brian Delphia. He's the CEO and owner of Delphia Consulting, the publisher of HR Actions. This is series episode number 4 in the Sage series, Smart Add-Ons That Make a Difference from Hire to Rehire. Today's session is being recorded. Later on, we'll send you an email that'll have a link to the recording. There is a handout as well. It has a lot of hidden slides in it that's packed with links and a lot more details. So you're going to want to be able to download that. You'll find that in the handouts portion of the GoToWebinar control panel. If you have any questions as we go today, please feel free to enter those as well in that GoToWebinar control panel. Danny Martinez is here from Sage, and he'll help us answer those as we go. We may also be able to answer them live as part of the presentation. We'll just have to see how well time permits. So with that, I'm going to dive in. You know, Sage HRMS covers the entire employment life cycle, and we've developed this wheel here to kind of show that whole series of events, right? You have applicant tracking and onboarding, then benefits management, time and attendance, payroll, employee and manager self-service, performance management, training management, analytics, alerts, and workflow, and then utilities. And in this series, we've been looking at different wedges of this circle all the way around. So if you missed episodes 1 through 3, 1 was just kind of a big overview about everything that's possible with the Sage HRMS ecosphere. And then we've worked our way through. We've done applicant tracking, we've done time and attendance, and now we're working on this employee and manager self-service sort of portion. So before we begin though, I'd like to get an idea from you folks. I'm curious, we're going to give you a poll. How much time per week does HR spend manually updating Sage HRMS in your organization? So I know you're not going to have an exact number, just take a guess. And I know it could vary depending on time of the year, right? If you're a seasonal business, you might have a lot of seasonal employees and do a ton of onboarding and hiring at one time of the year, and then it gets quiet. So just give me a rough idea. On average, how much time per week do you think you spend manually updating Sage HRMS? So 10 or more hours, 7 to 9 hours, 4 to 6, 1 to 3, or hey, we're a rock star, 0. We don't update HRMS manually at all. So with that, we got a lot to cover. So I'm going to close this poll out pretty quickly. I'm going to count us down. We're going to close out the poll and then share the results in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So thank you those who answered. Let's see. Are we able to see what the results are like? Is that possible here in our GoTo platform? Wow, so 25% of you are spending about 25% of your time every week entering data into Sage HRMS. About 17%, 7 to 9 hours, that's a whole workday. About a third of you 4 to 6 hours, and a quarter of you 1 to 3. So I can't do this math so fast. Let me see. That's 58, 68, 75% of you are spending almost a day or more every week updating Sage HRMS. Well, I don't think you're necessarily alone in that. Here is a study that came from HR.com. They asked how much data that's stored in your HR system, what percentage do you enter compared to having employees do it themselves? And look at that top line, 48% of large organizations said they spend 10 or more hours. And that top bar, that's pretty severe. And as you get to smaller organizations, so 1 to 249 employees, they're spending 1 to 3 or 4 to 6 hours, right, entering data a week in their HR system. About 87% of organizations agree that self-service portals are the most efficient way to provide employees with payroll and HR information. That's that little ring chart over there on the right. I mean, just think about it. It makes me crazy, if I'm honest with you guys. It makes me crazy when I hear a conversation where an employee calls HR and says, hi, can I have time off on Friday? 8 hours. I don't have 8 hours? I think I have 8 hours. You think I only have 6 hours left? Well, how about we go over every time I put in PTO in the last year and see where we're out of sync? Insane, insane. And if you're like me, no offense out there, I don't want to talk to people. That's why I love Amazon.com. I can buy a package, ship a package, write a note, and track it. I don't have to talk to anybody. And that's kind of the experience that folks not only expect, but want right now. The reality is employees and managers both want and need access to data. So here on this next slide, we made a list. What is it that they want to have access to? Well, they want information about their personal information, right? That could be their emergency contacts or anything like that. Time off requests, approvals, and history. That's avoiding that phone call that we just talked about. Benefits information and enrollment capabilities. Maybe it's their training requirements and a history of the classes that they've taken. Of course, time and attendance and timekeeping. Then there's all the internal documents, policies, things like your handbook. And they want access to external third-party websites and the tools that those offer. Maybe it's their HSA or their 401k administration. Now, some of this is possible with Sage Employee Self-Service, ESS. So here's a screenshot of ESS. Here you can see the landing page. Those boxes that you see, like my time off, compensation, which right now is closed, right? That little arrow over there on the right lets you expand or collapse that. Length of service and so on. Those things are called widgets. And there's lots of widgets that you can assemble into your employee self-service dashboard. So some examples: personal, time off, benefits, employment, career, company, training. Those are the navigation down the left-hand side as well. And then you'll see my menus, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. HR Actions really extends that capability. HR Actions is all about smart web-based forms for Sage HRMS. And that really is going to extend your employee self-service capabilities and then add a whole layer of management self-service capabilities. So out of the box, HR Actions comes with over 40 forms, and they cover the full employment lifecycle. But here's the thing: you can build as many as you like. You can build as many as you like. You can use any of the fields in Sage HRMS. That includes custom details and payroll fields. The only thing it excludes there is benefits. So it's really unlimited. Think about something you're entering by hand today that an employee could easily do themselves with self-service, and you could build an HR Actions form that does that. So this really offers self-service for both some employees, managers, and even forms that HR folks could use. And those forms have built-in routing and approval workflows. So at the bottom of the form, if you want, you can put a little area where it goes from person to person to person sequentially and lets them approve or reject the form. They can even send it backwards in that electronic routing slip. There's also a very detailed audit trail, so you always know exactly where a form is at any time, and you can see where it's been and who did what. These forms are all available online, so now you have an online personnel file. And the cool thing about this is not like editable PDFs. These forms write data directly to Sage HRMS HR and Payroll, both US and Canadian, Sage 300 Payroll, US and Canadian, and Sage 100 and Sage 300 CRE using the Sage HRMS interface. So let's make sure we understand the difference here. Sure, you could go have IT build you some web form using WordPress, or you could build an editable PDF. Still gives you that edit capabilities, probably doesn't give you any of that workflow at the bottom, probably doesn't have that audit trail, but most importantly, what do? When you're done, you clip it on something on your second monitor and you sit there and retype it all in. And that's just craziness. So we're going to show you how you can avoid that by going paperless with Sage HRMS HR Actions. So HR Actions really lets you do three things. Think of it as these three columns. That first column is where you build forms. As I mentioned, you can create your own forms in addition to the 40 or so that's out of the box, using any of the fields in Sage HRMS, including payroll, just excludes benefits. You could put user-defined fields on there. Maybe you want to use a tab like a survey. You can even do questions. And in fact, there's even a capability where you could ask folks questions, and based on whether or not they get the answer right, submit the form. So maybe ask them, hey, you're supposed to read the handbook. Here's a question or two from it. If you don't get it right, better go read it again. Then you can set the default routing slip, that little electronic routing slip down at the bottom, and you determine who has access to those forms based on where they sit in the organization, based on a date range, or even their role. You even have conditional routing rules. So here, let's say you have a little routing slip at the bottom, you can write a rule that extends that routing slip based on data right on that form. So let's say it's a payroll change form, which is very, very common. You could say, well, as long as the raise is less than 5%, here are the 3 people who have to approve it. But if someone tries to put in a raise over 5%, I want you to extend that routing slip and add these additional folks. That's all happening in the build column. That's typically done by an HR administrator. You don't need to be a programmer. There's no programming required. Then you determine who has access to the form. So employees and managers pick up those forms over the web and use them. We also have the idea of a universal initiator. So let's say you have another location and you have someone at that location that kind of acts like an on-site HR person. You could say, well, they're a universal initiator. They can initiate forms for anyone who is in that location. So that's just one example. A universal initiator is someone who can initiate forms on behalf of someone else. And you decide who that person is and what they can initiate. So people fill out the stuff over the web, they click initiate, and then it routes. That little electronic routing slip, every time it hits a new person, it's going to send them an email notification. They can click the link in there. They'll have to be logged in, so it's secure. And they can review the form. They can then accept it or deny it or push it back in the routing. Sometimes, based on permissions, you can even say they can change a field on the form. Typically, those approvers are managers or they're delegates. There's a delegate capability in case a manager's on vacation, executives, HR folks, and you can even have named approvers. That's like a role-based approval. So you could say, this is the payroll approver, this is the benefits approver, things like that. And then lastly, you can manage everything. So you can consistently monitor everything that's going on. You can see where every form is, what's out there routing, what's done but not been saved to HRMS. You can audit what's going on there, which means with the right permissions, you can look at a form before it finishes the finish line. So in my old days, when I worked at Bell Labs, we used to put forms in those manila envelopes with those string things, and nobody could see it till it finally hit the destination. And you never knew where that manila thing was in the mail rooms. Well, here you can always see where that form is. And with permissions, you can dip into the mailroom, think of it that way, undo the string, look at it, even make updates, fix things, string it back up, and let it keep right on going. You can cancel a form at any time. You can push it through the workflow. And then, of course, if you're good with everything, you can click Update Sage HRMS. That's why there's no typing involved. Of course, we have reports based on all this, and it's all searchable in that online personnel file. So I've asked Brian Delphia to join us today, and Brian has a demo lined up to really give you a show of the whole, as much as we could fit in 30 minutes, of what HR Actions is all about. But download the handout. You'll find it in the control panel of the GoToWebinar window, because that has, I don't know, 10, 15 extra slides in there with screenshots and descriptions of everything that Brian's going to show you live. So Brian, what have you got for us?
Alrighty. Well, I just logged into Sage Self-Service, Employee Self-Service. It's Clint Eastwood. He's an employee and a manager. And I'm just going to talk briefly about the things that an employee can do. As Joe mentioned, this is a must-have application. I mean, an individual employee can go in and they can just look at all of the data, or for the most part, most of the data you're tracking about them, all their personal information, their time off requests, benefits, everything, right? Now, there's one difference between HR Actions and self-service, and that is that self-service is definitely a window into the HRMS, right? It's a view into it. There's also some things people can change. If you enable the employee to change it, like I have here, I could come through and say Sam is my preferred name, and I could discard my changes or save them. Now, this will go through a preset 1 or 2 approvals within ESS, okay? I guess 1 approval. Now, that's fine for employee information, and it's very easy. So this is a great thing. If you don't have ESS, you really ought to think about it. If I switch roles to a manager, right? Now, Clint can now see the people who report to him. So here's a list of the people and their compensation, right? Here, there's Rocky, love our names here, Brad Pitt, Shania Twain. But the manager can see all the information about their direct report, but they can really do two things. They can approve time off requests, or they can add in a note under an employee note, right? But there's more to this than just for a manager. They have to do more than just add a note or approve time off requests. Most people we're going to think are probably going to have some sort of form to capture data, right? So if I go into HR Actions here, I'm able to just get in as a manager and see my direct reports again, but now I'll have forms that HR's created, and again, no programming to do it. And I'll be able to do all sorts of fun things for my employees. There we go. So when HR Actions comes up, I'm going to have a dashboard, and this is HR Actions self-service running inside employee self-service. Now we have some people, not very often, but some people choose to have HR Actions as standalone without ESS. Not my recommendation, but it's possible. You don't have to have ESS to run HR Actions. So here, let's, if you think about data entry into a new hire process, this is the first thing I'm gonna do. If you have iRecruit, you might be able to have your new hire imported directly into Sage HRMS. And that's great. But if you have HR Actions, our best practice would be to have it so that a manager, or it could be HR, it doesn't have to be the hiring manager, can come in and say, you know what, I have to do a new hire. I know the applicant has filled out their application online with iRecruit or basic online application, or really most any recruiting solution. Let me just use an example here where I could pick, this could be basic online, this could be iRecruit that I'm picking it from. But once HR Actions is configured to point at your applicant tracking system, you can then pull up a new hire form, and I'll go through the basic construct of a form here in a bit, but I can go in and I can pull up a person, and if I simply come down and say save draft and continue, it'll take that applicant and it will bring in all that data that was captured in the applicant tracking system.
And Brian, let me make sure that folks understand that if they built a WordPress form on their website, or they use an applicant tracking system like iRecruit, I mean, we can pretty much connect with anything and pull that stuff over to the form, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So no reason here to have paper, print out an application and type it all in.
And even the more complicated things. I mean, you know, you might be asking for previous employment or education records in iRecruit or your applicant tracking, right? So those are multi-rows. Well, we bring that data in too. Well, here's some fancy stuff as well. If you have payroll, either Sage 300 payroll, HRMS payroll, US or Canada, although this doesn't apply so much in Canada, although it could, you'll notice that we automatically brought in the Oklahoma state income tax and all the federal taxes that are applicable. And that was automatic just by saying, oh, this person's in Oklahoma. Therefore, we know what taxes need to be applied. Let me give you a different example that's a little bit more granular. I'll just go ahead and delete this. If I go back in and do another new hire form, let me just show you some of the really cool things we can do if you have payroll. So I'm going to use the new hire with Sage HRMS example form. Now, this person's data was already filled in this example. I don't have it hooked to an applicant tracking, but I haven't filled out their current job. So right now, we haven't said anything about what needs to get added into the payroll. And think about it, if you're going to do a new hire process and you don't have this, you're going to hire them into HRMS, and then you got to go over to payroll, and you can go add the earnings and deductions and taxes in as appropriate, right? So here, if I come through and say, well, this person is going to be in our Daly City location, I come down and I click Save Draft and Continue. You're going to see now that the taxes automatically get added for Daly City, which is a city south of San Francisco, right? Now, I wanted to give you an example of a state with local taxes, right? Because, whoa, no, this person is not going to work in San Francisco. They're going to actually, or not work in Daly City. They're going to work in the San Francisco office. And if they do that, you'll see that it added in the San Francisco. Oh, it didn't. I have to do one thing. I have to say reapply my template. So do that, go down, save, draft, and continue. And it's going to redo the taxes and say, well, this time you need a San Francisco city tax, right? So really powerful and simplistic ways of streamlining how you get the payroll set up, as well as everything else you need in a new hire form. And if you happen to have the time and attendance system, there's all sorts of things you can put on a new hire form. It could be the fields that you get passed over to Sage time and attendance. It can be custom details fields, anything that's part of your business process. If you find yourself hiring somebody and then going back in and adding more information into the process, well, that all can get onto a form and be done. It's a one-stop shop. Okay. All right. So we've hired somebody, and the new hire form is what inserts the employee record into the HRMS system for the first time, right? Once the employee exists inside the core HRMS, then the employee can go in and go into self-service and sign up for the first time, create their own login and whatnot. I'm not going to go through that process, but let me go back to a different browser here real quick, and let's log off here. And I'm going to go into, again, Sage Self-Service, and I'm going to log in this time as L. Woods. Now, L's a new hire. So I would imagine that many of you might have a new hire packet, right? At a minimum, it's probably got the I-9, the W-4, but then there's probably all sorts of other policies they have to sign off on, acknowledgements, right? All sorts of fun stuff. So Elle Woods got hired today, right? Today is her start date. Not a whole lot in self-service because she's just, her basic name and address type stuff is in HRMS at this time, right? But if Elle's instructed to go to my menus and go to my required actions, then she's going to be provided a dynamic checklist of, based on where she's being hired into, her location, these are the forms that make up the new hire packet. Now, as a best practice, one of the things I always like to have done first is just have them confirm that what they typed in on their application is indeed correct and complete, right? So this is all the data that this was captured from an import process from iRecruit, okay? So the first thing the employee can do is come through and they could add in their emergency contact information, they could add additional information in, and then they would initiate that action, all right? And it's saying, oh, I can't do that. I have the required fields, right? Now there's several required fields. One is the effective date. We don't necessarily have to make them type in the effective date. It can be defaulted to today's date or other dates on the form, like job effective date or start date or things of that nature. So I'll just put something in here. Tom, Son, and that's it. Just, oh, and cellular. Okay. So now the required fields have little stars next to them. And that's what's nice about that is, even if Sage HRMS doesn't require the field, but your business policy does, you can enforce it, right? From actually being completed, so you can't leave that field blank. So I'm going to go back to my required actions, and I can see that the first one is routing, right? So I'm not going to go through all of these, but let me go through a couple different types, right? The I-9 form is one form that we do nicely. So I'll come through here and I'm going to say that I am a U.S. citizen, and that I'm going to put in my name here. So I'm electronically signing this. I'm going to read the instructions, and it tells me to plus continue, and I did not use a preparer. Notice that you can use preparers, translators here. So this can be initiated, the I-9 can be initiated by the employee, or if you folks would prefer to have somebody sit with them and sort of do it as a preparer translator and make sure it's done right the first time, it can be a form that is initiated by the hiring manager or somebody in HR. All right, so here it instructs the employee to stop, and then I go down to the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and click Save Draft and Continue, and then you'll see here that the actual I-9 form is starting to be filled out. So section 1 has been filled out because the employee did their part. Section 2 has not been. That'll be the next place that this form gets routed. Right, so I'm just going to go down to the bottom and go ahead and initiate this action. The next form in our list is a W-4. Now, this obviously federal, if you're in the States, you're going to get the federal W-4. And depending on what state where you're working, we'll dish up the right state W-4, like the California DE-4. So let's fill out that one. Okay, so I'm just going to come through here, and I'm going to say filing status is single, and I have to enter my name. Now, we have all of the provincial, is it the TD4s, I believe, is that right? Or TD1s, I was getting confused.
TD1, yep.
TD1s, yeah, we have all the federal Canadian TD1 and all of the provincial ones as well, and territory ones. Ellen Woods. Okay, so I'm going to sign that form, and I'm going to initiate that. Now, what's really cool about the W-4 forms, if you've got a Sage Payroll system, if you have Sage HRMS Payroll or Sage 300 US or Canada, we will, when that W-4 form or TD1 form saves, it actually carries those elections all the way through to the tax record on the employee in payroll, right? And you can set up your tax forms so that if that particular corresponding tax code doesn't exist on the employee record that's associated with whatever TD1 or W-4 W-4 they're filling out, we can insert it, right? So really nice tight integration. Just sort of our thought is handle it once, collect all the data, and the data should sail into the system wherever it needs to go. Now, we also have some other types of like handbook acknowledgements. I'm just going to create that real quick. Handbooks sometimes can be really large, so we might just link to it and then have the fact that they have signed off on the handbook, right? They've read it, and that's a custom details field. That enables you to read and report on who has read a handbook inside HRMS, right? And then here's another way of doing electronic signatures. It's this, they have to put in their name. You can enforce middle initials or not. They have to put in the last four of the social security number, which is, or their SIN number in Canada. Normally you wouldn't put it here, but that makes it easy for me to demonstrate because I can just put in the right number. You can have a checkbox like an iTunes, I agree, or you can actually have a pick list, I agree, I do not agree. We'll let them go forward if they don't agree, and an employee signature date. So these are all the basic components required to capture the intent of a valid employee signature. And then if I initiate that, then that attestation is done. Now, there's other forms of attestations you can look at that are more verbose. So for example, if I look at the confidentiality agreement, I want to initiate this, just look at it, you can actually just embed small paragraphs of data. I mean, this can get quite long if you wanted to, right? So if it's just a policy statement, a couple pages long, get it right embedded in the form. If it's a 76-page handbook, you don't probably want to have them scrolling through 76 pages inside the form.
And Brian, other things you can put on a form, maybe you mentioned, but I've seen people put videos, like a message from the CEO or something.
Absolutely.
And I've seen put graphics too, right?
Yeah, you can put graphics. You can, in fact, our bank deposit sort of has the idiot check picture of where.
I think that security form has a video. I'm not
yeah,
sure.
I just clicked on it. It's
Brian, real quick, it's Danny. You were in a handbook. Just a quick question. You have both I agree and then the agree checkbox. Can you talk a little bit real quick on that? I know you said it was an option, so you just wanted to show them.
Joe,
Yeah.
you probably have it memorized. There's 4 components of capturing the intent of the signature. So it's they enter their name, they date it, they say I agree to this, right? And there were 2 different forms of saying I agree. It could be a checkbox or it could be a pick list. You wouldn't do both. You'd do one.
And Danny, the whole reason we have both is a checkbox just requires 1 mouse click. You just check the box. But a drop down is 2 clicks, 1 to drop it down and then 1 to pick the choice. And there were some organizations whose legal advisor said, I really like 2 clicks for an attestation, but it's the date, your name, and the attestation, and then the statement as to what you're attesting to that are required. And we meet all 4 of those legal criteria. But you'd only put one of those 2, never both.
So here's a form that we take security seriously. It just has a little video that you can watch. And then there's a quiz afterwards. And you can, after watching the video, you can say, answer these questions. And so there's all sorts of things you can do with forms. Okay, so I think we've gone through most of, we haven't done all of these, but the person's done some, they haven't started one, but if you think about your employee onboarding packet now, do you have any clue whether it got done or not in real time or even after the fact nicely, right? So one of the things that we're able to do here is we're able to have either the hiring manager or we can have HR monitor where the person is in the onboarding process. So here, I'm going to go to a different browser. Let me just log off and start in here again. I'll go back in as Clint. Now, did I hope I clicked. I think I clicked.
Brian, while that comes up, can I talk a minute about how all of these things fit together so well in the Sage HRMS ecosphere? Brian just showed you an example of an onboarding checklist, and you can clearly see what's done and what's not done. But let's level up. On December 2nd, we're going to talk about alerts and workflow, which to me is Mrs. Kravitz from Bewitched, right? It can stare at data sources, even your website, even an email address, and alert you to criteria that you set up. It can send an email, it can do all kinds of stuff. But in this case, it works beautifully with HR Actions because it's part of the Sage HRMS ecosphere. So let's say you've done your onboarding list, like Brian showed you here, and you want a certain form done within 5 business days. Well, now level up, combine this with alerts, let alerts stare at that list. And after a day, send a reminder email to the person. Yoo-hoo, you haven't done it. After 2 or 3 days, maybe it's the person and their manager. Yoo-hoo, we're still waiting on this. So the beauty of Sage HRMS and the whole ecosphere and what this whole series is about is how these components allow you to select exactly what you need, what's right for you. You don't have to get everything, you get what's right for you. And how they work together so well that you really get a multiplier of the BAM effect. How's that? Since we talked about build, access, and manage, we'll call that the BAM effect.
Okay,
and
thank
I think
you.
that's beautiful.
So Joe mentioned notifications, alerts, right? One of the things that the hiring manager, Clint Eastwood, has hired L. Woods, he can go in and he didn't have to poke his head in the conference room where Elle's filling out all this paperwork, he can simply, from his desk 2 floors up, for example, pull up Elle's records and see exactly where she is in the process, what she has completed and what she hasn't, right? So if I'm supposed to go down and meet with her as soon as she's done, well, when she has, only one red little button left or icon left that says that there's one more form to do, I might want to start heading downstairs to meet her at the right time, okay? So not only can the hiring manager do this, but the HR person can as well. So let me see, I'm going to go, sorry to be logging in and out here, but there's different interfaces for different roles of users, right? So let me log out again. I want to go into the HR Actions Administration. And I'm going to go in as our HR person, Bell. And now within the administrative side of things, the manager, the HR person also has the same access that the manager does. They see it for everybody. They can look at a particular checklist, a particular form. They can put it for a particular person. I'm just going to search for Elle Woods here. Oops, not Woo. There we go. All right, so when I bring back her records, I see the same thing. I can see exactly what she's done and what she hasn't done. If maybe, a checklist doesn't have to be an onboarding checklist. Checklist could be performance appraisals are due, or goal check-ins are due, or policy attestation for revision to a handbook that we've done annually needs to get reattested to, right? So there can be all kinds of checklists. And if you need to send an email reminder, this will, if I click this button, it will send an email to whoever's displayed here. Now, only one person, Elle, would get it. But if I had lots of people, everybody would get the email reminder. And that has a link in it that they can click, and it'll take them right where they need to go to finish up what they were doing. All right, so we've looked at the new hire process and the onboarding process, but what about the rest of the employment life cycle, right? What about just things like, I don't know, a transfer or termination form, any number of reasons why you would today, probably with a piece of paper with the data you need to enter, turn to HRMS and put the data entry in, right? So let's see what I'm going to do here. I'm going to let's go in as a different employee, and I'm going to log in as there we go. Let me get out of here. I'm going to go in as a manager. But you know what? No, I don't want to do that. Yeah, I'll do this. Okay. I'm going to log in as John Wayne. Don't you love our senior citizen?
Can you do it with the accent?
No, absolutely not. That's a really bad John Wayne accent. Okay, so I want to transfer one of my reports. Okay, this is a mid-year promotion. It's going to impact the person's pay. Dan Rutherford works for me, and I need to move him to the quality assurance department out of manufacturing, right? So here, form types, an existing employee is a bucket for everybody, right? A new hire, you saw us use those. There's other specialty forms for OSHA and OHS, but I'll just come down here, and I know that this is going to be for Dan Rutherford. Now, I could do it for somebody who reports to Dan, or I could just search for everybody who reports below me and find people. So a manager can submit paperwork for people who are below them in the reporting chain of command. So I pick the person, and then I'm going to say what I want to do. And just look at them. I mean, there's all sorts of types of forms, and we come with, I don't know, 40 plus forms out of the box, but it's super simple to make them. Pick one up, copy it, start one from scratch. No programming, it's point and click. So transfer form, I'm going to click submit. Now, what the system is doing right now is it's going out, right, to HRMS, and it, for this person, Dan, it retrieved all of their current values that are for the fields that I've placed on this form, right? So there's, in the body of the form, there's generally the fields, what it is now, and what do you want to change it to. Now, if Sage didn't exactly call the field what you call it, you can edit the label when you create these forms, or you can edit it globally throughout HR Actions. So you just make that change once and it's inherited everywhere. So a form, I'm going to use this time to go through the sort of the construct of a form as well. First off, you have instructions. These can be short and sweet or as long and complicated as need be. You can always print the form. This little section here will always be there. It's configurable by you, but every action is like has an action ID, like a check number or transaction number. It's got the employee number, their title, their name, who submitted it, and where does this person reside in the organization. This is the employer in Sage HRMS, and these are the org levels. You can have all 5 of your org levels turned on here if you wish. Everything is effective dated, so you can future date transactions. You can also prevent it from saving the HRMS before a certain date. If you've got a third-party payroll system and you don't want to send a pay change to them prematurely, you can use this strategy to not update Sage HRMS until after that interface has taken place. You can add as many or up to 5 files. You can put in a small novel of comments about why this is happening. And then if I come down, I'm just going to say, well, you know, the start date, we're going to do this next month. There we go. It's going to be effective on, that's not the year. Sorry, our date is a little old. So that's going to be effective on 11/1. He's going to move to engineering. He's going to be in Daly City. He's going to be in the quality assurance department. Now it's doing a little thinking here because we've set this up to make it easy for the managers. We don't necessarily want to list all of our jobs we have in HRMS because the quality assurance department only has 2 jobs. So Dan's going to be the manager of quality control. Right now, John Wayne doesn't manage the quality control department. That's by a gentleman by the name of Wilson. Sam Wilson. He's the VP of engineering. And if we come down here, notice that the pay effective date, it automatically changed to the value of the job start date. I'm going to go through and I'm going to give this person a 2% increase. And business rules will kick in and say, oh, well, this is who has to approve it if it's a small 2% increase. However, if I were to put in a 20% increase and I click Save Draft Continue, it's going to not have a longer list. I don't know what happened to my business rule there. Something, oh, because I haven't changed. Yeah, I did change. I don't know. Not familiar with my data, but that should have kicked in more approvers. Not sure what happened. So if I'm transferring a supervisor out of manufacturing and they're going to go over to the quality assurance department, chances are that the 3 people who report to Dan today in the manufacturing department are not following him to the QA department. So I may want to reassign that individual. So I'm going to say these people now need to report to Clint Eastwood. Now you can see that this changed, okay? This now says assigned to Clint Eastwood. So when this record saves to HRMS, it's going to create a history record for Dan using the what the data was column, and then it's going to update Dan's record to the new information, And then for each of his direct reports, it's going to create a history record. And then it's going to also then create or update their supervisor to be Clint. Right? So I'll go ahead and simply initiate this action. Now I'm going to go ahead. Those pay fields are out of sync. What happened here? I'm not sure. Let's try that one more time. If not, I'll abandon ship. There we go. Nope, they're out of sync. Okay, there's a problem with my underlying data. Sorry about that, but let's go over to HR actions and log off here. I'll wrap this up, Joe. I just want to show a little bit about the approval process and saving into HRMS.
Well, and I had a quick question, Brian. You talked about data, and in this case, your demo environment has some weirdness, no worries. But HR Actions has a whole set of reports with it that can even help with data integrity, right?
Oh, it does, yeah. We won't. If you want to know more about those, come to the analytics webcast. We're not going to have time to cover that today, I don't think. Okay, so this is HR Actions proper, right? So if I go into the action status area, right? Let's talk about an action. So an action is something like what we've done here, where we have a handbook acknowledgement. Or each row here represents an action, okay? And I'm able to view the action, right? Suppose you're a distributed organization, right? This piece of paper could be anywhere. It could be back in the manager's car, it could be in somebody's desk, it could be an inter-office mail, it could be an overnight package somewhere. No matter where it is, because this is electronic, you can see where it is, right? So here, I'm able to just view this, right? And here I've got something happen, and I have to deal with that. So there's a nice audit history. Click back. If I have something to approve, I can see that this is supposed to have one approver. And our approvals follow three categories. One walks the chain of command, one is a stack of executives, and the other is a stack of HR and named approvers. So an O is operational, that's a chain of command, and I can simply approve on behalf of the next approver. I have to put in a comment, and an email will go to the person I just approved on behalf of saying, hey, I approved this for you. If I'm ready to save something to HRMS, I just click this, and are you sure? And that data is now going to get saved to HRMS. If I did a tax form, it's going to get all the way into payroll. The life cycle of an action, it comes in as active. Active actions have been submitted out there in the hinterlands, but they have not arrived in a paper-based world to HR yet, right? In progress means that they've gone through the approval process, right? Well, in progress means they're either active or they're pending. They could be going through the approval process or all the way through. The first one here, 2 green circles, that's through the approval process. This is just starting the approval process. Pending actions are thoroughly approved. So a pending action is all approvals have been done, like for example here, and if I wish, I can click a save disk and it will save it to HRMS. I can also go through and say, you know what, I want to save several records to HRMS, and I can do a bulk save to HRMS. And I don't have to do it one by one. I can select multiple records at the same time. So just a little bit in the last, I'm going to try to finish up and give you 10 minutes to wrap up, Joe, if that's good for you and questions. I wanted to show just a little bit about building forms. So we have a form catalog, And again, there's many default forms here, but building a form is relatively straightforward. So I'll just use an employee note. You give it titles, instructions, you give it behaviors, you indicate how do you want to default the effective dates? Do you want to pre-populate them or not? Do you want to allow file attachments? Do you want to save the file attachments into HRMS? Do you want to display the file attachments in ESS? What fields do you want on the form itself under database fields? So this should look familiar. These are the pages of data inside HRMS organized the same way. So if I scroll down, there we go. This is the employee notes field. That's what the form we're editing. And I didn't make any changes there, so I'll just continue on. You can default values of the fields. You can have multi-row fields on a form. Notes or that. Do you want to display existing records or just add new ones? You can have user-defined fields. You have hundreds of them. Ordering fields on a form is just drag and drop. This is a multi-row record, so there's not a whole lot to organize here. And then I'm just going to skip to forward. You have performance appraisals. This form doesn't have those. But then here's where you set the default minimum numbers of approvals, and business rules can up the ante. Business rules can increase the number of approvals. So we've just scratched the surface here today with HR Actions. It's an extremely powerful system that can really streamline and dramatically change the way HR works. It removes a lot of the clerical aspect of data entry and the waiting around for is this done yet. It provides unprecedented visibility. So, Joe, I hope we covered everything I was supposed to cover.
Great job. Great job. So now it's back to you folks. It's time for you to start saving time. Stop rekeying data from paper forms. Stop being a data entry department and start delivering the paperless experience that today's users really expect. And when you're doing that, you can spend more time on strategic initiatives. Remember that survey question we had up right front? 75% of you said you're spending almost a day or more a week just typing stuff into Sage HRMS. So that's crazy. So now my question is to you folks, do you want to continue the conversation? If you'd like to chat with us about how HR Actions could impact your world, then just let us know. There's no obligation required. Isn't that what they say on those TV commercials? We're just reach out and ask you, hey, what would you like to change? Where are you spending a lot of time today that you don't want to be spending that time? What are you trying to accomplish? What pain points are you trying to get rid of? Sometimes we ask a very simple question. If you had a magic wand, what would you change? So let us know if you'd like us to contact you. And of course, if you just have questions, we're here to talk. We'll go through your environment. Now, be mindful, we might ask you before we meet, hey, can you send us a copy of some of your paper forms? Can you give us an example of what your forms are like? And that really just helps us have a more impactful, intentful conversation when we do meet. So let us know if you'd like to continue the conversation about manager and employee self-service with HR Actions. And to be mindful of everybody's time, I'm going to close out this poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So as I said up front, this is part of an ongoing series where we're really looking at that entire wheel that you saw up front, that whole ecosphere around Sage HRMS. So we've already done several episodes, and Caleb has been posting those in the chat, I think. We have 3 more coming up. So on October the 14th, we've got performance management with Maviva. On November the 11th, we have analytics with HR Analytics. And on December 2nd, we have alerts and workflow. And I kind of hinted a little bit about alerts when I said it was like Mrs. Kravitz on Bewitched. So if you'd like us to register you for any or all of those upcoming webinars, go ahead and check the boxes and let us know. We'll go ahead and register you. You'll get an email from GoToWebinar with your unique connection URL. We'll also send you a reminder. And of course, download the handout. You'll find the handout in the handout section of the GoToWebinar control panel. It's got the slides we showed you today, plus about 10 or 15 slides that were hidden but are in the handout, and that has screenshots and details of many of the screens that Brian shared with you today. It also has this schedule of upcoming webinars, and each one of them is a link. So you can share that with others in your organization, and they can click that link and register themselves. We'd love to see you at an upcoming episode where we're really focused here on the Sage HRMS ecosphere, from smart add-ons that make a difference, from hire to rehire. So, smart tools. I'm going to close out the poll. I think we've got everybody in there. Smart tools, smarter workflows. Sage HRMS and its ecosphere are ready to help you get more done with less effort. I want to thank you all for spending an hour of your day with us today. Thanks to Brian Delphia for putting together a phenomenal demo. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes, including Caleb and Danny, who've been answering questions and who make the magic happen, and Laura, who gets us all organized all the time, and to all of you. Hope you have a fantastic day, have a fantastic week, and we hope to see you in a future episode of Smart Tools, Smarter Workflows. Thanks, everybody, and bye for now.